Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm honestly at a loss for words right now. There's a new story out talking about Anne Sarnoff. Correct me if I'm saying her name wrong. She has been in an interview with Variety. And in this interview, she has said that Warner Brothers will not be continuing with the Snyderverse. Just dropped this morning. I'm at a loss for words. I mean, this interview is lengthy. I'm going to read some of it. I'm going to react to it. And then we'll talk going forward what this is going to look like, how fans can react to this or not react to this. You know, there's going to be a reaction. But yes, this is the Warner Brothers CEO. So it's not, it's not a source that is not reputable. So we're going to get into it. So let me pull up this article right here. Variety. Warner Media's Anne Sarnoff, Sarnoff, not Sarnoff. She talks about Zack Snyder's Justice League. This is what she said. Here's the initial quote here. She says that they're not tolerating the behavior of, I guess, the toxic part of the fandom of Snyder fans, fans of the Snyderverse. They've construed it as toxic, and they're saying they're moving away from that. But, one thing that's confusing to me is what's the problem? Is the problem for Warner Brothers that the fans overwhelmed them and forced this movie to come out? Because that's exactly what happened. Warner Brothers was not on board with this movie. Warner Brothers did not want this movie to come out, but it was to a point where they could not ignore the fans any longer. And after this statement, guys, do they really think this is going to make things better? Who knows? But she has just come out, Anne Sarnoff, saying that there will not be a continuation of the Snyder Cut. She says that the Snyder Cut of the Justice League will complete Zack Snyder's work with DC. And it's mind-boggling that they could do something like this, because at some point, it's not even about money for them. You know how we always say with companies, follow the money. It doesn't even seem like it's about money at this point, because anybody who's not living under a rock knows that the Snyder Cut has been wildly successful. We don't know the numbers exactly yet, but from crashing servers to it trending on Twitter every single day, there's no doubt that this movie has been successful. But it's almost as if the money doesn't even matter for them at this point. It's about control. And here's the problem with that. She says, and I'm going to read the article in a second, but she basically says that they want to work with their creators. They want to work with the people that they've hired to create and bring these stories to life. But why isn't it a collaboration? Like, DC is just as much everyone's as the people on this Warner Brothers board. Remember, let me point out two things. I'm not saying DC in particular. Warner Brothers, okay, did not create DC. And although they bought the rights to use these characters were around before probably many of them were even born. So for them to use the fact that they bought the rights to the characters to take over their portrayal and everything and not even listen to the fans, that is what I think is frustrating, and it's going to backfire. So let's start with this. It says Warner Media Studios CEO Anne Sarnoff says that the release of Zack Snyder's Snyder Cut Justice League will complete the director's superhero trilogy, reinforcing the studio's desire to move past the social media campaign to hand back control of the DC film universe to the filmmaker. Last time I checked, Zack Snyder is a filmmaker. Does that not make any sense? Or my chair is like squeaking out the wazoo. But to move past the social media campaign, are they saying, okay, now we've put this movie out, let's move past this? Like, they're controlling this? They never controlled this in the first place. They never controlled the Snyder Cut in the first place. But now they're saying, okay, we are ready to move on. If they had their way, this never would have started in the first place. The Snyder Cut wouldn't exist. So it's not something that they've ever been in control of. But here, Warner is again trying to reassert themselves in control of the situation. But let's read on because there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Apparently, I'm hearing some things that they are open to HBO Max doing something where Warner would not be involved. They'd be moving forward with the Snyderverse that they had well, not the Snyderverse. They'd be moving on with the DC universe that they want to imagine with J.J. Abrams, etc. Let's get back to the article here. It says, instead, Sarnoff believes that the future of DC is more than just movies. She's excited about a multi-platform future, one that sees Batman, Superman, The Flash, and other Justice League members popping up on streaming shows, video games, television spin-offs, and big screen outings. It's a vision that echoes what Marvel has been doing with its Avengers characters, taking superheroes like Vision, Scarlet Witch, Hawkeye, blah, 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 who had previously appeared only in movies and giving them streaming shows of their own. The Warner Media Studios chief is also excited about the diverse range of creators she's been enlisting to help tell some of these stories. Now, here's the thing. Okay, that's great. But the fans did not hire Ann Sarnoff. So she's got this job and she's deciding that she's going to pick the creators that she's going to enlist. And I'm not saying that they should not have some creative control, but I think the way that Warner is coming off right now is we will take control and you will have nothing to do with it. That's what it seems like, because obviously there is a compromise here. There's a compromise where, yeah, you could maybe do a spinoff or Elseworlds. I mean, for crying out loud, what was Crisis on Infinite Earths for? Did you not just in that show create an opportunity to have multiple stories told in multiple different places? That's what Crisis on Infinite Earths was. But now they're saying, no, we're just going to go forward with the stories we want to tell and basically not listening to the fans at all. Let me continue with the article. But Sarnoff may have to deal with an unruly and emboldened fan base, one that successfully pushed Warner Media to release a 4-hour R-rated version of the Justice League, which was truer to Zack Snyder's darker vision for the characters. Yeah, you think? Like I said, this entire thing is going to backfire. For those of you just joining the live stream, Ann Sarnoff has said that they will not be continuing with the Snyderverse. And basically, Zack Snyder, it completes the trilogy. They did not. I mean, it's so scripted. Like they didn't plan a trilogy. They planned a universe. Zack Snyder was supposed to be in control. When did it just turn into a trilogy of Man of Steel, BVS, and Justice League? It seems like she forgot that he was also involved in Wonder Woman as well. But it's like, how do you get to that oh, this was only meant to be a trilogy? And like I said, it's going to backfire. I definitely think it's going to backfire because they are not doing this in a way that includes the fans and makes them feel like they are part of the story of these characters. And it's because these characters are extremely old and Warner Brothers did not create them. DC Comics did. Jerry Siegel, Joe Shuster, like Bob Kane, all these people who created these characters, all right, they're responsible for their likeness, the stories that made them who they are. And a lot of these fans have been watching these stories for decades, longer than some people have been alive. They've been watching these stories. And so to have someone who nobody really knows, hired by Warner and Sarnoff, come in and then just decide who she's going to hire based on her interpretation of Superman. Now, I don't want to say that I know whether she is a Superman and Justice League fan or not, a DC fan or not. I don't know Ann Sarnoff's story. All I'm saying is that I don't think any true fan would just want themselves to be a part of telling the story because these characters are so much bigger than one person's ideas. Why do you think over the history of comic books, we've had multiple different writers, multiple different artists create these characters? It's because they can be seen in so many different perspectives. But here you have Warner Brothers saying, no, we don't like it. We're going to move on. And she also says, and I'm going to get back to the article, but she also says in this article that they don't just want to let the minority control the entire situation. But it's like, okay, well, let's hear it. Who else is out there screaming for the Whedon cut? I'm listening. Like, where's that trending on Twitter? Where's that fan base at all? The only thing we've seen for 4 years plus straight is this fervent support for Zack Snyder's vision. And it's like I'm sure many of these fans who support the Snyder Cut would love to hear more ideas on different things. I'm not even knocking the J.J. Abrams side of things, but you better let Zack Snyder finish. You know, like why would you not? I mean, look at the money that's coming in. And again, we don't have official numbers on any of that stuff, but you know that it's doing numbers. It's already crashed servers. It's already been trending on Twitter every single day, pretty much all of March. It's been the Snyder Cut. And mind you, this is in a month where you have the end of WandaVision, where you've got King Kong versus Godzilla, and you've got the premiere of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And this is the point that I was saying. At some point, it's not even about the money for them. It's about control. It's about control of these characters, intellectual control of these characters. So let me continue. Obviously, the big thing with Ray Fisher and the allegations, that's something they want to just move on from as well. And obviously, with Ray being tied to Zack, there's kind of no way of separating them because that is the cyborg that Zack Snyder wants. That is the Batman and Superman, etc., that Snyder wanted. And so they're kind of inseparable. Although, once again, Crisis on Infinite Earths, it allows for so much flexibility in terms of creativity, but they just want to move on from that. So they asked her, why did you decide to release Zack Snyder's Justice League? This is what she said. We wanted to give Zack the opportunity to complete his vision in a 4-hour movie. Okay, which is impossible to do in theaters. We're happy that we have HBO Max to let the rope out as it were, and allow the fans to see all 4 hours of Zack's vision. And you know what? Give credit where credit is due. I'm thankful that we got the Snyder Cut because after seeing that, like, it was everything for me. It was personally worth all those 4 years of the fight. So I'm not going to be unfair to anybody, but at the same time, to then to act like this was something that you wanted to do, to act like this was something that you had planned on doing, no, you had to be dragged screaming and crying to the Snyder Cut. So they ask her, what are your plans going forward for DC? This is what she says. We've got an incredible group of creators, television series creators, Max series creators, feature film creators who are basically broadening the base of talent that we work with on DC because we're so excited about the potential to build out the DC multiverse. It's one of the reasons why I was hired almost 2 years ago. Well, I mean, let me know in the comments again, maybe it's just my miseducation on her. Who is she? Like, is she some crazy big DC fan? First of all, she doesn't work for DC. She works for Warner Brothers. Okay. Um, oh, Cameron is a vibe. Thank you. Yeah, exactly. It's just, it's kind of like a true fan's worst nightmare. And I'll tell you what, the folks over at Marvel, they better pay attention. The fans, I mean, because if it can happen here, it can happen on Marvel's end as well. Not to say that the fans deserve all the control, right? People need jobs, they get jobs. Somebody's got to run it, somebody's got to make the movies. They deserve some creative control. But when they do like a hostile takeover of these characters and the characters' histories, it's no longer fair. And it's one person's vision on all of these characters. And that's just not even who these characters really are or how they should be portrayed. So she says she's hired all this talent, right? Everybody's here. We've got all these people. Nobody knows who she's hired, but she says it's one of the reasons I was hired almost 2 years ago. The before and after was it was a very siloed organization with no connectivity between the businesses. DC was being developed, but in a kind of monolithic way in each division. My mantra coming in was to make it bigger and broader, and we really want to surprise and delight fans with more connective tissue across various media and platforms. Again, so what is the problem with the Snyderverse? This is what I'm talking about. This is like targeted. They say, oh yeah, we want to make it bigger, multiple characters, the multiverse, right? Crisis on Infinite Earths came on the CW, right? All of these things allow for multiple stories, multiple universes, just not Zack's. What's the big deal? I mean, this man, has he not been like through so much? The tragedy that caused him to not even finish the movie, to then turn around and say, okay, we're going to move on with these characters, but we're going to exclude you. Why? Has anybody actually ever thought about the why? I mean, it's been bashed from the beginning. Man of Steel, I know it's grown on a lot of people. I always was a fan of Man of Steel, and I'll acknowledge my bias. I'm a huge Superman fan, and I like the darker take that and the visual Zack Snyder delivers. So I was always a fan of that from the get go. BVS, just a comic book fan's dream come true, right? There was very little it could do to go wrong, and I get the whole Martha thing. I'm not going to get into that, but seeing Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman on the same screen for the first time is iconic and historic. And I don't care what, it's like King Kong versus Godzilla. Are we really going to argue about the story? Like you're seeing two iconic titans, but the story and Martha, like, are you and this is what speaks like, are you guys really comic book fans? Are these people who are controlling all this stuff? Are they really comic book fans? Because although there have been some phenomenal and deep and thought provoking and, intense stories, right? Let's not kid ourselves. We're here to see superheroes, right? We're here to see comic book superheroes. This is not Oscar time or whatever award ceremony, insert award ceremony here. Like, this is about seeing action movies, and action movies traditionally don't have great stories. But I was a fan of BVS. Okay, Wonder Woman was phenomenal. I thought Patty Jenkins and Zack Snyder did a wonderful job on that movie. Okay, and 1984 is a whole different discussion, but those were all great movies. And they weren't doing as well as Marvel. No, okay, Marvel has been around longer, but I think Warner Brothers has been so hungry to have what Disney has with Marvel that they just threw away something that was blossoming into what we got, the 4-hour Snyder Cut. It really was, and it was so cohesive from the first three movies, right? We'll not talk about Suicide Squad. Anyway, the first three movies, right? Establishing the DC Trinity, right? The rest of those movies, they can be important or whatever, but what's most important, all right, is having your DC Trinity. That's what the entire DC universe is based off of. And Zack Snyder hit it out of the park. He hit it out of the park with all three of these characters, right? But Warner says, no, it's time for us to move on. Like, we don't like it, and we don't want to let a sect of our fans control all of it. And again, I say, well, where is everyone else? Where are the Whedon fans on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and every other social media platform? Where's their voice? Because it sounds like all we hear is your voice. All we hear are the executive voices. And yeah, I get it. Somebody's got to be in control. I get it. Somebody's got to be in charge. But true fans understand that these characters are so much more than what one person imagines them to be. Multiple writers, multiple artists. I've said that. So let's continue here with the article. The Snyder Cut came about because of a fan campaign. Do you feel like you need to strike a balance between being responsive to fans and charting your own course as a company? How responsive do you believe DC should be? So before we get to her answer, this question is loaded in a lot of ways. First of all, do you feel like you need to strike a balance between being responsive and charting your own course as a company? Warner Brothers is not DC. Let me say it again. Warner Brothers is not DC. So Warner Brothers charting their own course for their company, that could be to drag DC through the mud. And I understand. No, I'll continue with that statement, regardless of finance and regardless of fan support. Because is there any DC movie in recent memory that you can imagine, and not just Snyder stuff, but even Christopher Nolan stuff with The Dark Knight. Now, obviously, the box office was ridiculous with that movie, but I'm talking about internet presence, and it was a different time. It was in '08 or whatever. But maybe not since Dark Knight have we seen a movie with so much fanfare at fever pitch. So, charting your own course as a company, like, who cares? Who cares what the course of Warner Brothers is? Like, don't drag DC and its properties through the mud in order to chart your own course. Like, Warner Brothers is only the characters and properties that it owns. Warner Brothers is not like, WB, they have like Looney Tunes and stuff like that. But you know what I mean? Like the major stuff, the big money makers, stuff like DC, stuff like Harry Potter, like that kind of stuff are big money makers for Warner Brothers. So let's get to her answer because, I'm not going to bash her before she says it. She says, we're always going to listen to our fans. But we are in service of the broadest fan base. Like I said, who else is here? I mean, and I know there are people who don't like the Snyder Cut, but let's continue. In service of the broadest fan base, and we owe them an integrated, holistic strategy. We are the shepherds of the franchise. And hopefully, when the fans see what we've got in store, they'll know that DC is in good hands across many. And I don't want to say it like I'm reading it like it's bad, so pardon me for that. It's a, you get upset about this kind of stuff. But let me read it fair. And hopefully, when the fans see what's in store at DC, they'll see that it's in good hands, okay, across many different platforms with many different creators. We want different voices in the mix, fine. For certain fans that want singular voices, they may be disappointed. I have to stop right here. I'm going to let you finish. For some fans who want singular voices, when were the Snyder Cut fans a Snyder only fan base? Did we have any problem with the Arrowverse? Did we have any problem with the animated DC films? Why is there this? They're painting this picture that these Snyder Cut people only want Zack Snyder to control everything in DC. Did we have a problem with the Batman video game? Like in the comic books, in all these things, like nobody's made a fuss about that. It has only been about letting Zack Snyder finish his vision for the DCEU. So I don't know who she's, and I'm assuming it's obvious she's referencing Snyder Cut fans. So she says, and I'll say it again, for certain fans that want singular voices, they may be disappointed, but we would ask them to be patient and see what we've got in store, because perhaps the newer voices in the mix will have just as compelling stories to tell. Man, this stuff is like, when you hear some of the stuff that these people like, when you hear some of the things that are being said, like it sounds like they're just disconnected from like real people and like real fans. Because doing YouTube, I've talked to a lot of other creators. I've never heard anything like that. I've never heard like, all we want is Zack Snyder forever in everything, and let him take over all of not just DC but Warner, and then buy Disney and Marvel and do it all. Although it would be sick to see Zack Snyder do some Marvel characters. Absolutely, like a Deadpool, Blade, Venom, like that would be on point. But I digress. It has never ever been that, at least as far as I can tell from the people I've talked to and what I've seen online. Never heard that argument, but that's what they're saying is happening. So let's continue on. We want to, okay, here, this is a kicker. On balance, you, of course, want to listen to your fans, but we do want to stay true to our vision and our mission for DC and build that out. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Our vision and our mission. This is not like there is no balance if it's just yours. They didn't say, and I'm assuming when they say our, that they mean the companies. Okay. And from the context of what I've read thus far, it seems as though she's saying our as in the company, not ours as in the fans, because she's talking about it in context with the fans and the company. So the ours is them. They want to listen to the fans, but they want to stay true to their vision and their mission for DC. Now, here's the problem. Just 4 years ago, that vision, that mission was with Zack Snyder. 4 or 5 years ago, all that was about Zack Snyder. So when did all of this change? I'll tell you when it changed. It changed when they saw Avengers, making all that money. It changed when they saw Man of Steel not making stupid money like the Marvel movies. And kudos to what they're doing. Zack Snyder's saying it was a slow cook, just like much of the Marvel universe. That started over 10 years, really, before it became what it is now. And Warner Brothers wanted it now. And they thought Zack was the guy who could give it to them now. But he's not. And he was a storyteller. And stories take time to develop. Zack Snyder said in an interview just about a month and a week ago, that with all of these characters, he had planned an arc, which means a beginning, a middle, and an end, in a way that the MCU, which goes on pretty much perpetually, always new Marvel movies, in a way that Marvel had never done. And so it does mean that the Zack Snyder's Justice League and the DCEU, as far as he's concerned, did have an ending. So it was only a matter of Warner Brothers waiting until Zack was done. He said all these characters would be done at some point. But at this point, it's like they don't want to follow the money. They don't want to follow what the fans are saying. She said right from her mouth, she said, but we want to stay true to our vision and our mission for DC and build that out. Their mission and their vision is money, 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 like billions, like Marvel has right now. Not building up a story, but just getting that kind of money right now. That's what it seems like, because I mean, it can't be story. What's wrong with Snyder's story? I mean, it seems pretty great to me. To me, and again, like I said, I'm a fan. So I'm not gonna lie and say, oh, I'm not a fan. I'm just some unopinionated, unbiased voice out here on the interwebs. But yeah, it's just I'm like so disappointed by this. She says we have weekly meetings with our executives in every division. Last August, I was made head of studios. For those of you just joining, Ann Sarnoff, the CEO of Warner Brothers, has said that they will be done with Warner Brothers, continuing with Zack Snyder's vision for the Justice League, and that Snyder Cut has completed his trilogy, like they had that planned all along. So we have weekly meetings with our executives in every division. Last August, I was made head of studio. So last August, so she was brought on. Now she said she was brought on 2 years ago, but she was brought into this position just last August. So less than a year she's been here, and she is single-handedly, or not single-handedly, but they've decided they will stop the Snyderverse. So she was made head of studios and networks, and I now have all the creative groups underneath me. So now around that table, it's not just Warner Brothers. Sorry. It's not just Warner Bros. Film, Warner Brothers Television, and Warner Brothers Games, but it includes HBO and HBO Max and the Turner Networks, Adult Swim, blah, 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 blah. Okay. All right. We get it. You're a big company. What I'm trying to get to here is it seemed like there was a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel with it possibly continuing on HBO Max, but I'm not seeing that. I've heard that this is what's going on, but from this Variety article, which they did with Sarnoff, I'm not seeing that. I'm not. So maybe we'll if that turns up, but this is the article. This is a source article where all these quotes are coming from today, if you've been watching. And I'm not really seeing anything about it continuing on HBO Max. And again, it's because Warner owns, they're highly involved in, if not owning, HBO and HBO Max. So at this point, let's talk about, before we get out of here, what do we do going forward as fans? Obviously the initial reaction is frustration, and you just want to like get that hashtag trending, right? And I would say, let's do that. Let's just keep that hashtag going, because let's get back to the roots. What was it that got this movie made and finished in the first place? It was consistency. It wasn't fever pitch fandom, okay, that happened in the beginning, or any single day or single moment. It was that this had been happening and consistent for 4 years. That is why the Snyder Cut came out. So what do DC fans do going forward? We just continue making our voices heard. That's all we can do. That's all that got them to do it in the first place. That's all that will get them to hopefully walk back some of these statements. Now, there was something saying that another executive had said that they would allow it to be on HBO Max. Let me pull up that article. But before that loads up, Vox put out an article just 4 hours ago, and it says this. And again, I want to talk to you about like the mischaracterization of people. It says Justice League Snyder Cut saga reminds us which fans' voices get heard. And again, anybody can make a Twitter hashtag. Who's not being heard? Like, where's that voice? Hashtag Whedon Cut. Look for it now. People like loving the Whedon Cut. It's barely there. So it's kind of a mischaracterization of fans, I think, and just their intentions. Like, these DC fans have always existed. They've always been there. They're just really excited about Zack Snyder's Justice League. Like, is that so wrong? Like, is that so bad? It was Warner Brothers' idea at one point. They put it out and people really liked it. Some people really liked it. And now they're acting like it's a bad thing that those people really liked it. It's like we didn't create Zack Snyder's Justice League. This was something Warner Brothers created along with Zack. And now it's a bad thing because they're ready to move on, and fans aren't. And that's honestly, those are the best kind of fans to have. People who don't give up, people who are like, who stick to it. But with that being said, guys, this video is getting long. I'm probably going to put up a couple other videos at least because of just what's happening now, and I'll be following the story to see what happens. So obviously the only way to be around when I'm doing that video is to subscribe and click the bell so that you can know when I'm ranting again. But this was some crazy stuff. So let me know in the comments, because I love to chat it up with you guys as always about what is going on today. It's some crazy stuff. So hit the like button, subscribe. No Snowpiercer tonight for those of you who follow us for Snowpiercer. They got a 2-hour season finale next week. So I may team up with Zack. We may do a little bit of that a little later. But we got Superman and the Flash coming on tomorrow. And man, I will keep you posted with all of this Snyder Cut stuff. Again, to close, and Sarnoff saying in an interview with Variety that the Snyder Cut has completed Zack Snyder's trilogy of films. So stay consistent. Don't give up, guys. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.